Ain't no more worries, I'm up at it earlier. Niggas try to figure out the problem. But 30-30, I hit it like Curry. They hit me, I don't even holler. These niggas sound floppy. Niggas ain't gon' stop. Switch out my cousin, my addy, my family straight, and that's all that matter. Stacking them rest and then saving, put back for whatever, whenever it happens. I put my trust in my faith and I'm walking through straight, I don't see no one else. No, it ain't low in this rap. Simmons is better than steps.
Alright man, back again with another video. So today we have the sample and beat that I cooked up for Gunna. I've been listening to a lot of his latest album, and there's quite a few interesting techniques that we can take away from that. So I'm gonna go ahead, break down the sample first, then I'm gonna go over the drums, and make sure that you stick till the end because I'm gonna be giving out a lot of sauce. So let's get into it. Alright, so first off, let's start with the piano. In his last album, you can hear a lot of piano melodies. So when I started the sample, I just went ahead, opened up Keyscape, and I picked this LA Custom C7 Softest preset, and I laid down this pattern. Now this pattern might look a little bit complicated, but trust me, it's actually just two chords. So we have the E minor and then we have B. But to go a little bit more in depth, essentially what we have here is an E minor add 9, then we have an E minor 11th, and then we have a B minor chord. So the way I came up with these chords, we have the basic triad chord. After that I took the root note, I pitched it up an octave. Then I took the 5th, which is B, and I pitched it up an octave, and then I added this F sharp note. Now moving on to the E minor 11 chord, essentially it's just the triad, then I added this A, and we have the F sharp. And after that we just have the B minor triad chord, which again, I just took the root note, pitched it up an octave. I took the 5th, pitched it up an octave, and then once again I pitched it up another octave. It's nothing crazy. I just have a 1-5 chord progression. I just added more notes and played with the voicings and inversions of the chord, so don't be scared by music theory. Now for the effects on the piano, EQ, a stereo shaper, then I have this vintage reverb and another EQ to take out the high end. Now moving on, I wanted to layer the piano with another sound. While listening to Gunna's latest album, there's one thing that I noticed. A lot of these samples, they sound like one sound, but in reality they have a ton of different similar sounds layered. So I wanted to achieve this effect, went ahead and picked this ambient sound from Analog Lab. And as far as the pattern goes, I just took the piano chords and I copy and pasted them. So as you can hear, it sounds pretty similar to the piano, but it's a little bit more ambient. And after that I added all of these effects, a preset that I use called Ambient Key. I'm gonna leave it for free in the description so you can download it and use it on your samples as well. And this is how everything sounds with the effects now. And when we play it together with the piano, so it's very subtle, but you can still hear the trail of the sound once the piano ends and this comes in. Now after that I wanted to add some strings and fill out the mid end of the sample, so I went ahead and added these strings. I'm using Chris Hines ensemble strings contact bank. Now you've probably noticed that I have all of these patterns here. Essentially what I've done is I've taken the chords from the piano, I've broken them down into single patterns. Now essentially when you do this with any type of string instrument, it makes it sound way more realistic because it allows the sound to articulate, if that makes sense. So majority of contact banks, they have sound recordings, which depending on how many notes you have stacked, they make different sounds. So if you break it down by one sound and one pattern and then you stack the chord that way, it sounds way more full and more realistic. So I've been doing this pretty much every single time I have violins or any type of strings. After that I took the layers and I panned them individually. and here I added these effects. So an EQ, I wanted to take out the high end and the low end of the sample and just have the mids. Then I added this reverb and a little bit of pancake, and that's how they sound now. And when you play it together with all the other sounds, now it's very subtle, but you can actually start hearing the sample come together. Now after that, I wanted to add some low end because we didn't have any low end in the sample. And that's the thing with sound selection. Here's a little tip. If you have live actual instruments like pianos, violins, guitars, whatever, the best thing you can do for your sample sound selection is to just keep using actual instruments. So for example, if you start with a synth bass or a synth, it's best to use more synth sounds. And if you start with, say, a piano or a guitar, it's actually better to add strings, an actual bass guitar, bells, glockenspiels, pretty much anything that's an actual instrument. So I went ahead and opened the Scarby Rickenbacker bass and I laid down this pattern. This is an extremely simple bass line. All I'm doing is just following the root notes of the piano, and when you put it together so far, this is how the sample sounds. Now after that, I wanted to add some vocals, pretty much essential to any Gunna beat, and I went ahead and added these vocals. Now originally they sounded like this. And the plugin I'm using for these vocal samples is the Boom Vocal from Excite Audio. Has a lot of different sounds. So yeah, after I added the vocals, I wanted to add some more accents because a lot of these samples in Gunna's latest album have a lot of texture and accents, and you know, they just sound really textured. So I went ahead and added this accent from my Polyphonic Master Collection kit. After that, I chopped it up because I wanted to have this call and response going on with the vocals. So whatever the vocal stops, the accent plays, and then whenever the accent stops, the vocal comes in. When you play them together, that's how they sound. Everything together. You can hear everything is in the background. There's a lot of layering going on, but you don't actually hear it because it's not in your face and it just sounds like one big thing. For the B section, I wanted to add even more sounds and expand on this call and response I had going on with the vocals. So I added this ambient flute sound, which is once again a one shot from my Polyphonic Master Collection multi-kit. I wanted to make it more ambient. I added these effects, so basically a pitch wheel, but I set it to 70%, so that way you can still have the low end and the high end of the one shot. A little bit of sound theory when it comes to making a sound ambient, like here we have a lot of ambient sounds. What you can do is basically three things. You want to take out the high end, you want to add reverb, give it more space, and then you want to turn it down in the mix, so you want to lower the volume. This is exactly what I did. So I took out the high end, I added some reverb, and then I added a little bit of panning. When you play it together with the vocal and the effects, this is how it sounds. So this is the final sample part of the video. This is how it sounds together. So here's the thing, these drum patterns, they sound bouncy and they might sound complex, but in reality, pretty much the hi-hat that's doing all the heavy work. So first off, I start with this kick sound, an extremely simple pattern. And that just keeps repeating. I moved on to the hi-hats, which sound like this. I have this 1-bar pattern, which repeats. In the first bar, I just add this whoa hi-hat note. And finally for the snare, we just have this basic snare. So here's a tip, when you have a sample that's taking a lot of the frequencies and it's very layered and stacked, you want to just use very simple drums and use your hi-hat to create the bounce. And that way the beat doesn't become overcomplicated and the artist actually has, you know, space to flow on. When you play it together, this is how it sounds.
Undefeated, I feel like the champ. My bitch love the hunters, we fucking get money, she turning my tongue to a champ.
So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys learned something from this video. And if you want me to do any specific style or type of video next, make sure to leave a comment down below. And until next time.
Came out the bottom, I kinda whole lot of young gunna worth millions of dollars. I asked out the charm, my little bitch a model, she made a few M's off a follow. You wanna on tour, a BP the chowder, live in a corner Matata. Ain't no more worries, I'm up at it earlier, niggas try to figure out the problems.